Welcome back, everyone. And now joining me for this segment, we have Jen Simons, and she's going to be chatting with me about how to find out about clubs and activities at your high school, and should you start your own? So let's go ahead and dig right in. What I mean, like I'm kind of two minds about this. Like one, yeah, I think I didn't realize like how hard it is for students to find out about clubs. And I know some clubs are super competitive, but I'm kind of jumping ahead. I've talked to so many students who say I'm going to start a club, but so I can be a founder and president, but I don't know what it's going to be about. And so I just want to address right off the top that you don't have to start your own club. That there are good reasons to do it, but it's not something that's going to be like this huge boost in the college admission process, right? Like it's about what you do in the club, not that you founded the club. So, kind of let's dive right in, Jen. What are your thoughts about clubs and finding the right club? And
Yeah, it's so funny that you said that you've been thinking about this because you've been talking to students who feel that they have to sort of put the cart before the horse, and it's not, they don't necessarily even need to, they just want to have that leadership
Mhm.
experience. But I was thinking about this topic because I have a few students who have started clubs, and they're along the lines of, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but film club, poetry club, cooking club. And so the first thing I sort of wanted to say was like, how do we differentiate this from a group of people that are getting together to explore their hobbies, which is fair and legitimate, but I think if you want to pack punch on your application, it has to be more. Like there has
Mhm.
to be really a mission that goes beyond something that you could do for fun.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing this especially now that students are filling out their Common App activities list. And, I'm saying, well, I get it that you like to read poetry. And I think that students might think that that's impressive just in and of itself, right? Because teenagers reading poetry together,
Mhm.
great. But like, what's the point? Like, what's the
Mhm.
why? What's the theme? So I think that you don't have to start your own club. And if you do, it's because you want to do something that goes beyond something you could just hang out in your house and do, like with a group of friends
Yeah.
casually.
Yeah. I had a student who he had like the car club,
Yeah,
and I said, "Well, what do you do in that club?" And he goes, "We pretty much just talk about cars." And I was like, "Okay, you know that's not going to help you with college." He goes, "Yeah, but I like it." And I was like, "Okay, just but you're not going to list it on your application." Like
exactly.
it's not. And he's like, "That's fine. I just really like it's a really fun thing to do every 2 weeks." And I was like, "That then is awesome. Like
Perfect.
I am so in favor of you doing that. You work very hard, and we just won't even worry about this for your application."
Oh yeah,
So,
no.
you
But
know,
if you wanted to, like, if he actually, you know what? I'm not going to ruin it.
yeah.
Let him have fun. I was going to say if he wanted to make, but you know what? Good for him. Like
Yeah, good for
that's
him.
fine.
And honestly,
Yeah,
if he hadn't had a ton of other activities, he could have still listed it just as a way to
yeah,
like indicate an interest and an enthusiasm and a passion. But I was like, if he did have room, I was like, it's gonna be number 10. Like it's gonna be number 10 out of 10 options. And
absolutely.
and he just, he had other things he was doing. So it wasn't like, yeah. Yeah, but let's talk about finding clubs. I mean, I
Sure.
thought finding clubs was sort of the easiest thing in the world
Yeah.
to do. So let's talk about why that's a valid topic for today.
Sure. I think that my and your most recent experiences I think have been on the college side,
Hmm.
and so I'm imagining like the first week of college orientation or the kids come and there's a huge fair and all the clubs and organizations are out and sort of like getting you like giving you lollipops or chocolate or whatever, trying to lure you to be on their mailing list. And it surprised me. I mean, again, I can't compare it to my high school experience because that was so long ago, but it surprised me when I talked to students and they said that doesn't really exist, that everything is online. There's no, at most high schools that I've heard about, there's no sort of club fair, where they can figure everything out. So the first thing that you need to do, other than talking to your friends, obviously, although there's a drawback to that, and I'll tell you that in a second, is to go to the school counseling office and see if there is a resource there. But the
Mhm.
second thing that you might not think about is that at most high schools, if not all, I mean, there needs to be a faculty member or an administrator that is in charge of that club. So if you're also really interested in, a chemistry club and you don't know whether one exists, I would actually start with the, chemistry teacher to
Mhm.
see if such a thing, because they will know, because inevitably they or their colleagues in the department have to advise that club. So I would start with the school counseling office, career and counseling office, guidance office, whatever it's called. Then I would actually go to the faculty, which I don't think students usually think about, but
Mhm.
inevitably there has to be, in most cases, an adult, in charge of the club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I talk to students who say, "Well, there isn't any such club." And then I'll go onto the website and I'll say, "Well, at least there was at some point because it's here
Yes.
on the website." And
Yes.
often the faculty advisor, his name is there.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I'll be like across the country. They'll be in like, like Colorado, and I'll be like, "Is Mr. So and so still there?" And they'll be like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Well, go talk to him because at least last year or the year before he was the advisor." And I'm joking about this too because I am also aware that these websites, I mean, college administrators are enormously busy. And updating the club websites is probably last on their list after all kinds of really important things. So no shade on them that these things are out of date, but I am acknowledging that they are out of date. But I do think that's also a good place to go to like give you that first clue to kind of, it's the first breadcrumb as you like follow those breadcrumbs. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And usually the first thing that a student will do, and of course this is right, is to go to their friend. Like they'll know
Mhm.
about clubs because people are involved in that they're friends with. But we want you, if possible, to at least in one, club or activity, push yourself maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone. And that means not just following what your friends and your immediate friendship group have done, or your siblings have done before you, but really sort of thinking, what might be a little different, and then
Mhm.
that's where you go and find the proper resources
And
to.
I think that's important to pause on because also that's something else that I hear. Like students just don't think there's any possibility that they can join a club that their friends don't already belong to. And maybe their high school is that kind of a cesspool of hostility that they need that protection at all times. I hope not. I mean, if it's a club with a purpose, right? So maybe this car club that I mentioned, I mean, I thought this young man was very nice. Hopefully he would welcome everyone. But it did sound like something where he and his friends got together. So that might have felt awkward. But if it's the yearbook, if it's the newspaper, if it's something like that, then where there is that overall purpose, if you're willing to get in there and work and get your stuff done, there really should be a place for you. And there's a structure that you can fit into. So it's not just about negotiating social dynamics. It can be very complex. There's a structure, there's a purpose. And if you can follow and fit into that purpose, you really should be fine. And I just absolutely want to stress that. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh my God, absolutely. I didn't, it's funny when I went to graduate school, I remember that I had to apply to be in courses.
Hmm.
And I thought, I've already applied to be in this program. I still have to
Hmm.
apply to be in courses. And I've been hearing more and more from college students that they have to actually apply to be, and not just like, Greek life, or where, there's sort of a ritual of application and whatnot, but you have to apply to be in clubs. And I think that maybe that's trickling down a little
Hmm.
bit to the, high school environment where, they're desirable spots. So you're not just like auditioning for a lead in a school play, but you're auditioning to be in the thespian society, or, things that we
Right.
would think would be open for everybody. So, I mean, I think that your advice is so strong, that there are so many different channels. You're not going to start as a ninth or 10th grader as the editor of the
Hmm.
newspaper, and you have to be willing to do that grunt work, even if you decide you want to be in the newspaper as a junior. Like, it's not, there's no shade, like there's
Mm-hmm.
no reason not to find a different angle. If you don't get, the lead in the play, try doing tech for a little bit, or,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So where am I needed? I think is a really good question that you can ask yourself after you sort of figure out what you want to do extracurricularly.
Hmm. The other thing that I was thinking is, if there's something that you're passionate about, and then there really is a gap in your high school, then that is a great time. Like, I don't want to dissuade anybody from
Sure.
starting a club. The example that I always like is I worked with a student who, and this was shocking to me because he attended a Jesuit high school. So they were all about service, but they didn't have a Habitat for Humanity chapter.
Hmm.
And he was so passionate about this. I mean, he was just a wonderful young man who was so kind of thoughtful about how privileged he was in the world and wanting to pass on the necessity, help others with their necessities. So Habitat for Humanity was a great way to do it. And he was so proud that like his first year, he took it from, I think it was like they went on two builds is what they call it.
Oh,
And
wow.
by his senior year, they were doing it monthly. And there was like 50 students in the club from, just starting with five or something like that. And so if you have that kind of a purpose like that young man I mean, I was like, you're going to sing this to the rafters. Like, this is going to
Hmm.
be, when he had other things he wanted to write about for his main essay, but I said anytime there's an activity essay, this is the one to write about because you care about it deeply, and you really built this, and that is so wonderful. Like, that is a true example of leadership.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, so sorry to put you on the spot, but did he reach out to do you know the process by which he established this chapter in his high school? Did he reach out to the Habitat for Humanity, like local chapter or national chapter? Do you
Hmm.
know how he did it?
I think that there was a developed chapter in his county, and so I think
Okay.
he just managed to look it up. But I don't know if he first like talked to one of the priests, one of the instructors who gave him, I really like it would have been interesting to ask. I just know
Mhm.
that once he got it going, it started very small and really exploded, largely due to his leadership. So I just thought that was such a wonderful story.
No, absolutely. And certainly, all those, he's given other students opportunities too to be
Hmm.
part of something. So I think that, to be able to make a contribution to your school, I didn't mean to disparage,
No,
students who
no,
want to start their own clubs. And I know you didn't either.
yeah, yeah.
But there has to
But make
be.
sure it's meaningful. Start with the club, not start with I'm going to found something. Start with what do I care about? I talked recently to another student who really was passionate about about ethics in computing because she wanted to
Mm,
go into computer science, but she was, and I appreciated this, very concerned about some of the ethical lapses in the industry. And I was like, "Whoa, how do you build on that now?" And she got so excited about it because it was a genuine interest, and I don't think it had occurred to her that she could bring that to her high school. And she was in Silicon Valley, so it was such fertile ground. And they had computer science, but they didn't have the ethics side of things.
interesting. I want to see that student who in Silicon Valley founds a Luddite club. Like where they just totally, I would love to see a little rebellion. That's my own, obviously, my own. But how funny would that be to go against the grain and be like,
Right.
nope, we're gonna give up our phones. And anyway.
I'm sure there's some eccentrics doing that. So, Jen, we only have like two
I'm sorry.
minutes left. So, no, no, no apologies. But any last thought, like the one, 30-second soundbite for the students?
I'm actually just going to hang on to what you said. And this is not where I thought I was going to be going about your student that continued to do something because he just enjoyed it. I don't want to minimize that. That is
Hmm.
also very important. And if we think about it, that is the true role of clubs and activities. But if you can sort of tweak that, into something that feels more organized and everything, all the more power to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, let's say if he from then had, I don't know, started helping other students fix cars, probably would
Yeah.
have been a massive liability issue. So he couldn't have done it through the school, but something like
Yeah.
that. Like, how do you build on this? So,
Absolutely.
all right. Thanks so much, Jen.
Great to see you. Thank you, Sally.
All right, so join us next week when host Ian Fisher will be talking with College Coach finance colleague Lori Peltier about trying to find an out for paying Parent Plus or private co-signed loans. Hint, it's not easy. I didn't even think it was possible, but I guess there are some very narrow, very, very narrow, tiny windows. So listen in. Ian will also be joined by colleague Christine Sawicki, formerly of Stanford, to talk about how to make your common application shine. And finally, I want to remind you that you don't have to listen to our shows live. Every show is accessible 24/7 on the Voice America website. You can also download us for free on Amazon Music, iTunes, etc. And if you're curious about other topics, remember to look through our archives. You can find them along with our blog posts on blog.getintocollege.com. And don't forget, we're here every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific.